as I say, FYI, the deputy communications minister in Namibia is 23 years. She's female.
I miss that.
The deputy minister of communication in Namibia in Africa, an African state.
Yeah.
He is 23 years.
Okay.
And they took her on because, well, they took her on to help fight COVID, to help move the COVID communication forward.
Excellent.
But she's a lawyer by profession and an MP also, so she's only 23 years.
Excellent, excellent. I know in Grenada you have one of the youngest senators too, right? Is it Dodd? What's his name? Judd.
Judd, yeah, we have, yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, just hold 1 second. Let me just send the link to Waves Communication. Okay. So you're back. Yes, you're telling me about the communication specialist out of Namibia?
Yes, sir. No, I just thought it was very interesting. But the trend is that countries are tending to use younger.
You're getting a lot of background noise. I'm not too sure why.
Am I here now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just saying that the trend is countries are tending to use a lot of younger people to bring forward the communication agenda. And even CSOs, that will become a major factor. So even though maybe the president and those people might be a little mature, but the geek will usually be some young person right at school kind of thing, you know, or at a college, university.
Point. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Any other comments? No. I'm waiting to see when Waves joins us. I just sent the link.
So I'm not sure, but I believe Miss is already in the room.
Yes, I just found that out. So maybe I'll just shut up for once and let us welcome Ms. Lazarus. Ms. Lazarus, over to you.
My apologies. Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Good afternoon.
How are you all? Thank you, Mr. Maxime. I'm sorry, I was a little challenged with technology and didn't unmute or put myself on video. I was trying to be, you know, respectful of your class still in schedule.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
They've been sufficiently prepped, so
Oh, wow.
no need to bottom me up now.
Oh. Okay. So your tutor has the regular habit of throwing me under the bus. I will do my best not to be flattened this evening, but I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me. I feel quite privileged to have, you know, this exchange, to be invited to do this exchange with you guys. And I hope that whatever little I can share, thank you, Steve, for the confidence. I hope whatever little I can share will be of some benefit to you. I'm not big on talking. I'm a doing person, which I think Steve knows as well. So I would like to keep what I share with you as an introduction quite short. And I'm hoping that you will have questions which perhaps will better feed into how my experience can be made relevant to whatever it is that you're doing now. How does that sound? Yes? Okay, everyone's
That sounds like a good plan.
good. All right, great. So my name is Raylene Lazarus. As you know, I am the owner and founder of Ways Inc., which is a communications consultancy. I've worked in marketing, media, communications all of my professional life, and in a variety of industries, which is why I find consulting so, I won't call it easy, but it was a natural step for me to do, because one of the things, I'm just going to jump right in and say to you, what I'm going to share with you is what I have found fundamental to my successes, or the way that I execute or plan for any organization, any business, whatever the industry is, big or small. These are the steps that I have found actually works for me again and again. So they're tried and tested, essentially, in my experience. Waves essentially takes our clients, we figure out what it is they want, what it is they want to say to their clients or their audience, and then we basically find out what is the best way of getting that message to the audience. In a nutshell, that's what we do. We simply transfer what our clients might want to say to what their audience needs to know, and find out what is the best way. So in other words, we make the message easier to receive by the audience by finding out what is the audience's preference. And I'm going to say this to say, it's always about your audience. Now, because you're CSOs, you don't necessarily, you're doing a sale, but not a sale in the traditional sense of the word. So, you know, it's not a product that you're necessarily selling, but you do have an audience that you're going to need to engage, to keep interested, that you need to get a message across to. So the way my tried and tested ways of doing that essentially is, first of all, you must know your business, right? And when I say you must know your business, it means you have to understand, you might have heard of a SWOT analysis. Feel free to indicate yay, nay, somehow, yes. Right? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So, perfect. So you would know that you need to do that to have this basic understanding of what you need. So you always start with knowing your business. Then you must know your audience. I won't go into the details of it because you already are familiar with the SWOT. You know your audience. You also would prioritize your objectives for those audiences. So you might have multiple audiences as well. And the question is, which of these do you want to deal with first? Which comes as a high priority? Which one is going to give you what you want, as well as will make sure that the business, by you engaging them, your business is then sustainable. Then you must kind of have the other fundamentals. So you prioritize those objectives. Once you identify the audience, you know what to convey, when to convey it, how frequently, what your resources are. Budget and people are always key. And you must make an allocation for measuring and evaluating. So that's your plan within your priorities right there. Once you've done that, you basically have yourself a roadmap for, you know, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, how you're going to keep yourself accountable, and the ability to what I call course correct. So if you can set off in a particular direction, and there are any number of factors that can take you slightly off course. You go back to what is essentially your roadmap, and you figure out how far off course you might be and what you need to do to correct on that, and how much of it you need to do even. And you do that by collecting the information and basically checking in. It's what I call checking in every now and again. It's why a strategy is not set in stone. So it provides you, it's essentially a guide. You have something that you work from. You go back 3 months later. I like quarterly check-ins if it's a long-term project. If I'm working for a business organization, I'm there for a couple of years, then, you know, you can arrange for quarterly check-ins. If you're doing something for a client, as I am now, just, you know, the project may be a short-term project, you still build in the milestones, or you still build in the checkpoints that they need to go back and say, okay, by X time, if you do this, this is the result you're going for, this is what you're hoping. If you check in by X time, because you've got your SMART objectives in there, if you check in by X time and these are not the results, then you go back and see what is it that you could have done better. But it keeps you on point and knowing whether you have in fact hit your objectives or your milestones, or what corrections you need to make to get there. You might have surpassed your objectives, in which case you tick it off and you say, yay, this was great. We're doing very well with this. It doesn't mean that you can sit on it. I think there's always room for improvement. But as I say, you would set your short-term and your long-term goals, and you go back and you check through. So those are the basics of a strategy. And as I say, that strategy works, in my experience, for any business. You know the business, you know the audience, you know what the objectives are, you prioritize those objectives, and you execute your plan. Any questions?
Yeah, let me start really.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've been trying to drill into them is this whole business of internal marketing, making
Yes.
sure that from within the CSO, we're all on the same page, and that before we go out spreading any message at all, we have to be sure that, you know, our vice president, secretary, floor members, everyone in the CSO knows what we're about and what our unique proposition is.
Yes.
So can you say anything to that in terms of when you're working with for-profit companies, if you do an internal session as well, to make sure that
absolutely is key, and that comes in under your SWOT as well. So it would tell you where your strong points are within the company. So you may, for example, already have a marketing department, but again, my experience has been marketing is not just about a department or one person. It's actually the entire organization. It's a culture. So you have to build that culture. And in order to be able to do that, you have to have really good internal communications. So there must be a way, before anything hits outside, there must be a way that it is approved on the inside. Your buy-in comes from your internal stakeholders first. You get your team of 2, of 10, of 500 revved and pumped. They get the information before. There is no opportunity for someone to meet them on the outside and say, oh, I hear you guys are doing this. And they're like, what? You know, no, you actually need to make sure that your team is behind you 100% and driving that message with you. Everyone is an ambassador in the communication of the message that we're trying to get to the audience.
Okay, I'll leave it open. I'll get back to you on that. But let's hear from the student.
Is it possible to have a marketing strategy without money?
Yes, I call that making magic. But it is possible to do, absolutely. I mean, sometimes the truth is, one of the things with marketing is that you have to keep it realistic. It tends to be an expensive undertaking. I've had experiences where the accountant in the firm that I would have worked for absolutely hated me on sight because their understanding of it was that I'm simply coming to spend money. But what it drives you to do when you don't have a budget per se, or you don't have a big budget or no budget, is that it just makes you creative. And sometimes those are the best projects that I have worked on. For example, after Ivan, I was working for an organization where we wanted to do something for the schools, but remember, everybody got hit really badly. So, you know, all the money, the purse strings were drawn tight. And what I would have had to do was find a way to collaborate with other entities who had the same vision, and everybody contributed what they could. And we put on a really nice show and fundraiser for the schools, and we actually made money. So, you know, it didn't cost the company anything except for resources in terms of people. And of course, because they had trucks, they were able to help with the transportation and stuff. It doesn't always, depending on what you want to do, and you have to know what it is you want to do. And again, there comes the planning. You have to identify what you have, how you can optimize the use of it to be able to get the result that you want. And always keep in mind, why are you doing it? Because your why will actually be your selling point for making this thing happen. You have to have a strong narrative, a strong reason, a story that your stakeholders essentially can buy into and feel that they're a part of. And it must come from a genuine place. And if you have that narrative going, then yeah, lots of things are actually possible with no money. But it's hard work, put it that way.
We call that narrative of mission. The mission is the real narrative for a CSO.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I've been drilling that into them for the last
Exactly. Make sure you build that story and, you know, give reasons. I mean, one of the things I always say, ask why. It's like a little child. You know how children get to a certain age where they question everything all the time, you know, you say X and they will say Y, and you give them an answer to that and they ask why again. And, you know, sometimes you kind of say, oh, go away, because they become a nuisance. But that kind of curious mindset, when you apply it to your own marketing strategy, the reason behind what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, then it really does give you what I call, it defines the purpose. And it helps you to tell your story in a much clearer way than if you didn't ask it. So by all means, you've started a CSO. Why are you starting the CSO? And your answer is because I want to help the youths. Why? If you keep answering why, it will keep you on course, because then you will always have to make sure, because remember, your marketing strategy as well also dovetails into your overall strategy. So your company, your CSO must have a bigger plan, and your marketing strategy is a part of it. It supports what this is doing. So it doesn't work in isolation. So once you keep answering your why, that actually is a way of keeping you on course. Whatever you do as part of your execution or as building the strategy for your marketing, once you are sure that it's answering that core why, then you know you're on purpose.
I do have a question. Good afternoon.
Hello.
This is Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie.
Might be a little PR question, but it is said that any PR is good PR, sort of. How do we translate that into marketing? In essence, if you are quiet, if the organization is quiet, the CSO is quiet, is that healthy?
I would say no. It is preferable. Being quiet is not good. You can have the best product or service or doing all the good in the world. If you need funding in order for your CSO to survive, you know, if you're very rich and this is your own, you know, organization and you can fund it yourself and you don't really need any help, you can just allocate the funds as you need, then okay. Then you really don't need anybody else's buy-in. Your stakeholders, maybe not so much. You can afford to pay for what you need. But if you need a collaborative effort, if you need to get donors or funders involved, if you need to get volunteers, then being quiet is not good. And in answering all publicity is good publicity, that has its pros and its cons. You see, because bad publicity, I'm going to start with the bad publicity. Bad publicity could give you an opportunity. And again, this is the thing, you have to look for the opportunities. How do you clear up what may be considered a negative? If it puts a negative perception of you out there, the truth is I don't think as a CSO that that's what you want at all, right? So it gives you an opportunity to clear it up, but it also puts a public face to your organization. And it gives you a chance to tell people who would not have heard of you previously what you're about and why they should support you, right? On the other side of that, so that's negative, you know, that's how the expression is coined, or publicity is good publicity, because negative PR gives you a chance to put yourself out there. But it's not ideal, because as a CSO, you want a good reputation, and you know, it's about visibility, and you want people to see you in a particular way. So the idea is to keep yourself visible by making the right moves. And by making good PR moves, it builds your credibility. It will then essentially extend to your volunteer base. It will extend to your donors. It will extend to your funders. It will extend to people who perhaps wouldn't necessarily fund you. But because they're aware of you, they might know somebody. That word of mouth networking, it's better not to give someone a reason to speak a negative. Let them speak about you. And in that light, it's also better to be proactive. Guard your image, guard your reputation, guard the visibility that you're building fiercely, you know, which is why I'm saying when you work with a team of 2, of 10, of 500 internally, that's where it starts, because everybody has to be on the same page, wanting to do the same thing. And it doesn't mean you won't find 1 or 2 who won't do the complete buy-in, but if you have a majority, then that force of strength is far greater than if you had no one, and they themselves would be their own word of mouth and spread the, you know, the good stuff. And PR by its nature is one of these, you know, someone said, can you do marketing without a budget? Well, there's an element, you know, that PR element of what you do within your communications tends to be free. So you can maximize that and just, you know, take it as far as you can go with the newspapers, TV interviews, the way your team, you know, you might host little events or just attend functions, and you wear your T-shirt that has your CSO brand on it, and that starts a conversation about what you do. So you look for these opportunities that you can use to always further the cause. And it's better if it's a good cause or rather a positive perception. And of course, you know, you run with that as much as possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Good evening,
Question,
everybody.
and
I have a, oh, sorry,
I have
go
a
ahead.
question, and you started to touch on it, right?
Yes.
At what point should marketing be engaged or considered?
Ooh, at what point? I would say from the onset. If you, in terms of the consideration, if you're doing any kind of business at all, if you need visibility at all, if you need people to be aware of you for product or service, then I think in the very beginning, you must give consideration to how you're going to make people aware of you. And by that nature, then it means marketing is, I always call it the belly of the beast. Marketing and finance for me is the belly of any business. It drives the operations. And I, as I said, you can have the best product in the world or service. If no one knows about you, you know, there's a saying, build it and they will come. But if they don't know that it's built or they don't know where to go to get it, then they won't be coming. So once you have a plan or you have a product and a service, sometimes even before you have the product or the service ready, you let people know it's coming. So you're building your base, you're figuring out your audience. In addition to which, every product and every service is not for everyone. That comes back down to targeting your audience again. So even when you're doing the marketing, you need to think, who am I really doing this for? Whose problem is it solving? Who needs it? And this is who you want to speak to. Everybody else who comes in, by the way, because, you know, if I'm driving down the road and you've done a billboard, then I can't help but see the billboard, right? I may not use it, but as I just said, somebody else may have mentioned in conversation. And I could say, oh, you know, I see they're just doing such and such. A new product I've just seen on the market is spice gas, right? I've not heard of spice gas before. I don't use spice gas, but now I can tell people, oh, there's another provider. That's how it works. Absolutely fundamental. And I say the earlier you start, the better. In fact, to some extent, when you're doing your SWOT, your market research will determine. So while you might not be executing a marketing plan, because you need to know whether your business is even feasible, you need to understand your market so that the product or service that you're building or planning to provide, that you sure you have a customer base. Else, again, your product or business would be dead in the water. So absolutely from the onset, it's critical, I think.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Miss, my question is regarding networking.
Yes.
I noticed that it's a big part of your organization, and Sarah has been pounding in our head that networking it goes way beyond.
Yes.
So what are some of the greatest reward that you have reaped from networking within your organization?
Well, I would say one of the things that I have found works for me is just a willingness to be open. I'm happy to turn up. I'm happy to be present, you know, just to meet people. Sometimes networking doesn't have to be about getting a result for your business immediately, but you would be surprised that because you've turned up for someone, that you've been present because it was just an interesting conversation. It may have had nothing to do with communications per se. It might be a whole different industry, but again, as I've pointed out, new industries don't really scare me because I've worked with so many different ones. So for me, it's like a little bit of a learning curve. So you go, you meet new people, and then you find out that those new people might actually need what it is that you offer. But apart from that, even if they don't need what you offer. And again, a conversation is had that says, I can connect you with somebody else who offers what you're looking for. People remember you as a resource. So even that, there's a way. So then they might then refer you to someone else. They might not need your service per se. But I think generally networking works in a way, it's how I treat it. If I try to network for business on the regular, I would probably never go. I will tell you the truth. I am terrified of having to do, you know, like pitch presentations or having to so formally introduce my business all the time. I prefer if it comes up in organic conversations and it's because the person is genuinely interested in it. But I find that if you go and you show an interest in other people and what they might be trying to achieve and just trying to help from, you know, a place of, it doesn't have to be beneficial, it doesn't have to earn me money right now, just how can I help you? That creates a different kind of relationship that has a further reach down the road, because you're building something stronger other than just what can I get right now. And even in your business, in terms of sustainability and wanting to have partnerships or collaboration, you'd be surprised. I mean, my phone book, my mobile phone, I call it my mini phone book, because if I've worked with you once, your number is not deleted. So every single person that I have worked with in the last 10 years, their number is still in my phone. And sometimes I'm shocked because someone will give me a number and I will call it and it will pop up. But that's just the way it is, because there's been an imprint somewhere. You're in my history somewhere, and I know that at some stage we can probably cross paths again. So I think treat all opportunities to turn up if you can. It mustn't be a stressful thing, because then that's not great. But treat all opportunities to be present as a good opportunity. Show up, be in the moment, learn what you can learn, meet who you can meet, show a genuine interest in other people and what they do. If you have a chance to talk about your business, then absolutely do so. And I have found that, for example, I turned up to an IT seminar probably about a year, 2 years ago. It was, so imagine, it really is the IT, you know, the tech geeks who this is for. But a friend of mine arranged it and asked me just to be present for numbers. And I did that. And I found that the host of the meet was quite knowledgeable, was Grenadian, also from the country, like myself, you know, and just a host of things in common. Started from scratch, self-taught, just a number of things that I actually admired as a person, an entrepreneur, pushing forward. And I have now been lucky to be able to call on this individual on 2 occasions. Not being able to bring anything to him yet, but because now when I have a question about IT, I'm in the privileged position of being able to say, what do you think about this? And pick their brain. And that's what networking is for me, a genuine, you know, interest in what the other person does, and you know, probably seeing how it can mesh with what you're doing as well, because I definitely think there'll be some stuff for us to do down the road. It just hasn't happened yet, and I'm really looking forward to working with them, because over the last 2 years I've gotten to know the individual more and more, and it's so, you know, which is what I'm talking about. Look at the relationships that you can build more than the immediate, and that's how your network mushrooms.
I have another question.
Sure.
My question is regarding success and timeline. How do you put a timeline to success regarding within your marketing strategy? Or is that even possible?
Well, I would say yes, within your strategy, because remember, you must have objectives and you must have goals. So you must know what it is you want to achieve, and you must know when you want to achieve it by. So this is to begin with, but remember, your strategy is only a roadmap. So when you go back in and you check, so for example, take COVID-19. No one could have prepared for that. All the best marketing plans or strategies in the world would have been derailed completely by COVID. So it doesn't matter what you had in place. When March hit and the world went into shutdown, your business was essentially in free fall for some, right? So some people would have had to stop projects altogether. Other people were able to adjust their projects. So I have a client who would have said, we're halting all spend on advertising apart from basic maintenance. So we keep the website running, we keep our social media channels, but we're not going to spend any extra money to create stuff or to pay for boosted ads on social media, that kind of, Google AdWords. None of this was going on. We just want to see what's going to happen. And then there are other people who would have found a whole new opportunity. So for example, the Grenada Tourism Authority would have done the Grenada Dreaming campaign. That was not there prior to COVID. That pushed that forward, and that's how they had to move with it. So yes, the success being measurable. In fact, as part of your objectives, remember, if your objectives are SMART, they must be specific, they must be measurable, they must be actionable, so it must be something you can do. They must be relevant, as in for right now. How is this going to make sense, again, for your core, your why? And then they must be done within a particular time frame. So if you were to say, as part of your marketing strategy, I would like to, let's see, okay, so you tell me one of the goals that you have for your CSO. Let's take a real example. You have a goal?
Yes, we do. One of our goal or objective is to assist other CSOs in regards to developing the principles in regards to sustainability.
Okay, so you want to assist other CSOs by developing their sustainability principles.
Yes.
How do you plan to do that? Give me one way that you plan to do that.
Through training and advocacy.
Okay, so let's take training, for example. You would know who your target audience is for training, right? You already said CSOs. So you would identify your CSOs and you would say how much training sessions, how many training sessions you would need to give, let's say, in the first quarter of the business being launched. So let's say in the next 3 months. So you would identify your resources, you have to find a space, or you have to decide whether you're doing it via Zoom, how many people you're going to train. So you see how you're getting your measures?
Yes, I'm seeing
Right.
it.
Right. And then you decide whether then this is in fact, whether you've been able to do that as well as you hope. So you would set yourself a target and say, I want to engage 3 CSOs and train 15 people. So let's say there's an average of 5 people perhaps per CSO. I'm not quite sure how they're built. And then you want to do this in a 3-month time frame or a 4-month time frame. And so then at the end of 4 months, this is when you check back in with your plan and see whether you have in fact achieved what you set out to achieve. You may have done more, you may have done less, and then you ask yourself, why did that happen? You address that and you move forward. In fact, even within your plan, so within the 4 months, if you realize that, hang on a second, you know, we've got this training, we've got great tutors, we've got the space, we've got the online thing set up, but we're not getting people to connect with us. You know, these 5 people that we're supposed to get per training, it's just not happening. What's going on here? So you don't even have to let it get to the end of the 4 months, the first quarter, to decide I'm not going to do this anymore, or I need to change it. You actually have the data. The data is critical. So you can look at it and say, hang on, this is not working. Why isn't this working? Maybe I need to go back to the CSOs and ask, you know, is it because the training is not what they need? How do we tweak that? So it makes you question yourself. And like I say, it gives you a chance to course correct. So yes, the measuring success and in a timely manner. What I would say is, even if you find that you're hitting your targets, you know, you're doing the right training, you're getting all the right attendees, you know, you're completing the amount of training or the amount of people that you want to train, you're hitting those targets, everything's spot on. Then I say, you need to make sure that you then don't get complacent. Push a little bit harder, figure out what you can do different, figure out how you can improve, innovate, bring something new to the table, because that's what will keep people coming back, and that's what will keep you from being stagnant. So your new funders, your new donors, you're always looking for people to buy in. You know, you need all the love you can get. So keep finding ways to basically stay relevant and for people to want to talk about you. I think we're about to have dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Could you check your mic, please?
Maybe a last question, Steve.
Marketing their farm on my class. Zoom.
Maybe a last question that maybe yourself, both yourself and Ms. Lazarus can really answer. In terms of, it's kind of the off, but in terms of Ms. Lazarus deciding to get into consultancy, get into consultancy, in the Canadian space, which often is described as limited and maybe for us here, right? Some of us may see that the space is broad enough. What was the vision? And put that in the terms of CSO convention. What my
Bonnie, you need, first of all, colleagues, could you check your mic and make sure that your mic is off? And Bonnie, could you repeat, please, because you're breaking up?
Right, so I was asking, are you able to hear me? Are you able to
try again. Keep going.
Right, so I was asking about the defining factor that caused yourself or Steve to get into consultancy within this atmosphere, within the Grenadian space, which is sometimes described as small and limited, right? And put that in the context of a new CSO coming out and some of the challenges that may be faced in terms of mindsets and things like that.
Great question, and you asked the right person first. So take it away.
You told you first.
Take it away.
Okay, wow, Bonnie, yeah, great question. And woo, you touched on a few hot words in there, you know, things like mindset and small space and, you know, all I can say to you is this. I have always wanted to own my own business. There are, by the way, no entrepreneurs in my family. Everybody has, you know, gone off to work and did it the very traditional way of, you know, you get an education and then you get into whatever field it is that you're supposed to be in. Or you fall into the field and you stay there for the rest of your life. So this was me really going out on a limb. I think it just got to the stage where I felt I work very hard. I'm very passionate about what I do. I throw my 110%, maybe more like 200%. You're looking at someone who, as a marketing manager, had a change of clothes. I had a case in my car, right? Little story. Little story, because at some point, even as a marketing manager, you're wearing so many hats, and sometimes you don't have a full team. So I had to be prepared to be scaling a coconut tree on one, for preparing for a particular event. And then within the space of an hour, being dressed in like a fine dining, ball gown, gala kind of thing. And so I had to be ready for that. So my closet walked with me so that I could be ready at a moment's notice. That's the kind of dedication that I would give to what I do. I made some very conscious choices about my career and how important it was to me. And I haven't regretted those decisions, put it this way. This was my choice. My career was my baby. And so in terms of making the leap, I felt like I had enough. I think if I could work this hard for someone else, I could put in the effort for me and see what happens. My thing was, I didn't want to be 80 and say I should have. But it still took me a while, because the business was actually registered way back in 2003. I only went into full-time consultancy 5 years ago. So you see, it still took me some time to make the transition on my own. In terms of mindset, I think my mindset started a while now. When there's more, you see people. I've been fortunate to be surrounded by some really open-minded, positive, high-achieving people who inspired me to do the same thing. So I knew that it was possible. I've also come from a family of women who are phenomenally strong. So you can kind of count on them. I think it's because I had, I'm going to say this, a certain amount of family support, that I was also able to make the leap without, worrying about some things that for other people, it would have been a really huge challenge. Doing consultancy in Grenada, it didn't occur to me to think about how small Grenada is. I've never thought about just consulting here. I would like my skill sets to be useful for Grenada. I'd like it to be useful for businesses in Grenada, small, medium, large, whoever needs it. I've always said if this was something I could do for free, then I would, because I think I'm able to, it's just something that I think I have an innate ability to do, plus the qualifications, plus the expertise. So yes, if I could give it away, then it wouldn't bother me at all. But my mindset was never about working just in Grenada. It never occurred to me that I'd start a consultancy and just be focused here. So there was that. In terms of the small pool, I think, again, that's a mindset. It's got to be, mine has always been win-win. And I'm always very happy to collaborate. I like to work with people. I like to work with older people because they know so much more than me and I can learn. And I like to work with younger people because they also know different things to me and I can learn. So, and I'm always wanting to learn stuff. So it's never a dull day. Everybody's got something to teach me. And I stay wide open. And I just think that there's enough to go around, If I don't have a key skill that's required for a project, I will reach out to someone else. I will find somebody else who can do it and let them do that project. In fact, I've recommended other people for projects wholesale because either I've been too busy or it's not my thing, but I know that this person will do a really good job. And as long as you're not going to mess with my credibility, so to speak, or my reputation or my standards, I don't want the person that I've recommended you to to come back and say, oh, this person is a problem, this person came from Raylene. As long as I know we understand each other on that level, rock right on, there's enough for everyone. That's how I see it.
The abundance mentality.
The abundance mentality, yes.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lazarus. Can you tell us your most difficult or challenging experience you had in the field of marketing?
That would be, I think I thought I'd found my dream job. And 3 months later, unfortunately, I was asked to resign for an event. Not that I had no control over, but I controlled it as much as I could. But there was another narrative that I could not respond to. And so I lost my job because of it. And that was very difficult because my reputation took a hit because of that. It was very public, and it was a difficult period for me. So, I had to build from that again. Or, and again, thankfully, I would say, because there are people, again, it's the relationships you build and what you do when people know what you've done for them, in terms of what you deliver, then thankfully that stands you in good stead. And I think it's because of the way that I work that I was able to survive that particular thing. But that was undoubtedly my most difficult career experience. Probably because I have my own bias and I thought it unfair, but there you go. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Good afternoon, Miss. I would like to ask a question. How is your coaching service unique from other marketing agency?
Coaching. You've used the word coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Oh, take it out and put, how is your service unique to other?
My service.
Yeah.
I think one of the things maybe everyone says it, but I genuinely offer what I call a bespoke service. I do not do one size fit all. I never want to agree to a job unless it's one of these projects where it comes with complete terms of references and it's very detailed and you know what it is. But if, let's say, for example, you call me up and you said, I want to raise some visibility, people need to know about me. What am I, how? I need to sit down with you, first of all. I need to understand your business. And this comes at no charge. So I sit down with you, first of all. There's at least an hour and a half where I will ask you some very pointed questions. You will give me the answers. I feel I get to know you. I know where you want to go. And only then, so which is why I call it bespoke. It's a bespoke service. It's like going to a tailor and having them cut a dress just for you or trousers just for you. And because we don't do one size fits all, then it means even the recommendations, if we agree that this is the direction, whatever I recommend might be where you want to go, and you say, yes, okay, now can you do this for me? Because remember the other thing I can do is I can do a plan for you and say, here you go, you may not want me to execute the plan. You may have someone in-house. You may want to do it yourself. You may want to just use me as advisory. So I'm your resource point that you can call in. So I can wear the hat, or Waves can wear the hat that you need us to wear at any given point. And it'd be the hat that you need at that point. No pressure. That's how it is. All about you and getting your message to your customer within your budget as well, I might add. If you've got $10, and that's the other reason we have a sit down, because there's no point of building you a budget that's, $1 million budget, and what you have is $500 to spend. I need an honest conversation that says, this is where we are, this is what we want to do, this is what we have to do it, and then I can tell you, this is what is possible based on the discussion we've had, and then we decide where we go from there. So, very personalized.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question
Mhm.
And it's regarding your name, right?
Yes.
Waves. What thoughts, you know, that you would have gone through in regards to come up with that name? And then I have a follow-up question after your response.
Okay. Waves. Okay. So I've always been, the beach is one of my favorite things. It's therapy for me. It's fun. It is
Agree. Let's keep it in the video.
relaxing. Right? I absolutely love the beach. But apart from that, the ocean for me is so symbolic. It's symbolic. Blue, by the way, is also my favorite color. Um, so the ocean is symbolic because it's deep, it's infinite. Uh, it's like a treasure chest. You can find all kinds of things in the ocean, and the waves never stop. And they keep coming at different depths, different heights, different levels. They can destroy. It can be a little surf. It could be gentle. So, you know, if you're making waves, the question is, which kind of waves are you making? What you're sure about is that it is changing, right? And you need to channel that change. So that was where that was coming from. In addition, because as Steve said, I have an abundance mindset, I wanted to tie that in as well. So the brand and the identity became limitless possibilities. The ocean for me is a place of limitless possibilities. So all of this tied in together. And blue happens to be a strong corporate color, but still very, very credible. It brings, if you do color therapy, it talks about credibility with the color blue. So that was important for me as well. And also because I am female, then the ocean for me is a feminine place because it generates things. So all of these things came into the name, the color concept, and the symbolism.
Okay. So my follow-up question is, how then do you prevent your company from making tidal and tsunami waves in other organizations?
In other organizations,
Yes, which
um,
is your own and as well as other organizations.
I have a basic thing. I mean, again, even the value, the core value of the business has been developed around water, H2O. Hot, which means we will have these discussions that may be difficult, but we have to have them because everybody needs to be on the same page. Then they must be two-way, as in I can't just be talking to you, which is why we're having a conversation this evening. It must be an exchange. We must agree that we must have agreement. We must find mutual ground. And it must be open. If you don't have transparency, I cannot function in a space where there isn't transparency. I need to know what you want. I need to be honest about what I can actually deliver based on the resources you have provided for me to work with, you know, and what your ultimate goal is. And if I can't do a job, I would rather walk away from the job instead of pretending to you that it's doable. In fact, it stresses me out completely if my thing is under promise and over deliver. And so if we have the agreement, the transparency, I think we won't have any tsunamis. In fact, there is a tsunami, I think you'll find that I'll be standing right there beside you trying to stem the tide. So, you know, but we have to have that understanding to begin with so that I can help you with that. It's all about credibility with building a business. You know, people must be able to trust you. Again, it goes back to relationships.
Before anybody else comes in, one of the things I want to point out to the class and probably ask really indirectly is this the concept of symbolism. I mean, I couldn't help but, I mean, you had that waiting on us, you know, the H2O, the heart, the two, the O, you know. I want to pride myself in thinking that I believe in symbolism as well, you know. I believe in acronyms, you know. the feed Caribbean, food, agriculture, tourism, environment, that type of thing. I mean, how much of a part did that play in the development of your concept for the company? I mean, were you always into heavy symbolism as part of marketing?
I think your identity needs to be strong. In my, should I say, in trying to get my piece of paper for marketing, you know, there are some brands that just stand the test of time. Coca-Cola, the shape of that bottle is never going to change. It doesn't matter if they go from glass to plastic or metal, that bottle shape will never change. Nike, that swoosh, wherever you see it, it just doesn't even need just do it anymore. You just need to see the swoosh and you know exactly what comes after it. So things like that, McDonald's, that big yellow M anywhere. I think even KFC to some extent, but you know, there are some huge brands out there that all you need to see is a shape. They don't need to say anything. In fact, I think another little story. I think as a child, Coca-Cola has always been my favorite soft drink. I don't drink as much of it anymore, but yeah, I love a cold Coke. And I remember their ads. I was able to spot their ads as a child. At the very beginning, I would just hear the bars, the first couple bars, and I would know that this was a Coca-Cola advert. I don't know how, right? But it must have been something. But that also, when I did sort of get into marketing, that was one of the things that came back to me. And I thought, they've got some kind of magic, you know, this ability to do this at so young. I want to be able to do that, quite frankly. And so, yes, symbolism, I don't know if you can call it symbolism, but I did know that I wanted my brand to be able to stand alone as an icon, that I could...
Imagery then, if not symbolism.
Yes, yeah. I wanted it to be able, like when people saw it, they would know that this is what it meant. Not just that this is what it is. The essence of it was more than just a letter or you know, or a pretty picture, put it that way, that there was something deeper to it. In fact, the H2O, as I said to you, my family is very supportive. And my sister, I had the text, but she was the one who said, this is what needs to be here, that this makes more sense being presented as, you know, your core values. Use the H2O, I think it's the periodic table, right? For water, use that because the water ties straight back in to waves and the ocean. So yeah, I take feedback where I can get it and I refine as I go.
And just to add to what Steve said, I get the sense, even though you may not voluntarily mention it, that H2O is almost a spiritual symbolism to you. It's stronger.
Pardon?
It is strong, the spiritual symbolism.
Well, I do like the fact that it will take any shape. You know,
Yes.
it's also, what's the word that I know what the word is, but you know what, you're quite right. It's, it will just adapt. It will flow, it will adapt, it will find its way around whatever crevice, corner, boulder. Yeah, I love it, you know.
It's one of
everything about it.
It is one of the few substances that exist in all three states. It could be a solid, it could be a liquid, and it could be a gas.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So yeah. I like that everyone's pointed out the symbolism though, thank you. I might use that for some content on social media, see what comes out.
I've also alerted them to the fact that, I mean, how I sold this is that they're increasing their network. I want them to, when they do officially launch their CSO, to have you listed as one of the people one of the companies that they engage, however informally. You know what I mean? It's always
Absolutely.
easy to see, quick to see, how we can, increase the network. I mean, I've been trying to, to preach that concept to them. I'm glad that you mentioned a lot of this stuff that I would have mentioned as coming from a non-expert. It's not that they hear it from the expert. They may take me a little more seriously, because they don't take me seriously at all.
Has this changed your mind at all?
Don't let the formal thing about service.
Mr. Maxime, that was my next question, you know?
Oh, okay, all right. I'm sorry. Let me not.
And my question would have been, what sort of benefit can be derived from having you here on this network here with us as a coach or an advisor or stuff like that? That was the question I have next.
That's an interesting question, because in fact, one of the things, see, when I start talking, sometimes I don't stop, but one of the things I was going to ask at the beginning, I did have it at the back of my head, was what did you want to get out of this engagement?
I can say one for now, but there may be so many, because we're thinking about, because we're new and just getting off the ground and all of that. Well, we're not even ready to get off the ground, but we're working on it.
Yes.
We understand how big networking can be. So that is where I was thinking, and later on in terms of connection and building clientele and building relationship, in the future. So that is where I'm thinking.
Okay. So you're thinking right now about building your network. I say absolutely, to including me in your network. It's in much the same way as there's been a question posed here now this evening in what was a slightly more formal setting. But feel free to reach out otherwise and ask the questions that you need to know, and see how, in fact, there's a post that was just done on my the business Facebook page that asked, what do you need? That was all right? And all people had to do was put one word. Can I tell you, there has not been a word. It's shocking, because that there are people who need it. And there's engagement with the post, but it's almost as if people are afraid to speak. You can't be afraid to speak. I mean, worst that can happen is you get told no, or you might get pointed in a different direction, but at least you would know what the answer is, and you know how to move from there. In fact, I've put Steve in that position where I felt like I needed help as a consultant, and I reached out to Steve and I said, gave him a laundry list of what it was that I thought I needed to achieve, and the help came. So, you have to be able to ask. You must know what you want. You may not get all of it, but like I say, every little helps. So you take what you can get and you build on it. So
not just that alone, I just want to add, I would never leave without adding this one thing, being able to access the resources that are available through you that can help us build our CSO.
Absolutely. What kind of resources do you think you would need?
Well, first of all, we don't have much experience, and this what we're doing here is, the uniqueness about this is that it's new to our area, our region, and with your level of experience, you might be able to give us some sort of guidance, some sort of assistance in terms of steering, even in terms of reaching out maybe to the right people at the right time based on the stages that we are in our development. So that is what I'm thinking about, and even giving us the right tools and guidance or support that we may need at one point in time or another. Because I mean, I know it's asking a lot of you, but I heard you clearly when you said you wanted to always do something for Grenada. And
I do.
Yes,
still.
so it is on that basis, I would say, I mean, I'm talking here, I hope I doesn't get shot in the leg. We're leaping out to you as a donor or a sponsor in that area, of giving support where support is needed or where you can afford to give support.
Okay. Well, that sounds perfectly fine to me. As I've said, my skills are knowledge, happy to share at any given moment for whatever's required. I have some very high standards I expect the people I work with to maintain those standards. So what I would say is for a group like yourself, because it's also a thing that has to be measured quite carefully, in that you don't want to invest time, because time for a consultant is money. That's me having an honest conversation. But you don't want to invest time if people won't treat it accordingly. So where I offer help, I find that I need to say, we have to treat it seriously. You have to do what you say. If I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, then you need to do what you say you're going to do. And we're good to go. So again, that conversation nice and early, and I'm absolutely here as a resource if necessary. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for setting the stage, because we understand what your precedents are. So it's just a matter for us to, work along with you and stand by our principles and our value and stick with our mission. Thank you.
I work hard, but I have fun doing the work. So
yes, indeed.
If we're prepared to do that, then we're good.
Thank you.
Further questions for Raylene?
A question, but just to say, obviously some of the principles of marketing and surrounding that can be read easily, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So providing her expertise to us, her expertise and experience, and really putting in the human value makes a whole heap of difference in terms of how some of us understand marketing. Because at least, I mean, for example, the example of having this conversation with $10 on one extreme, so maybe, I don't know, $5,000 on the next, or going up. It shows that marketing can be extremely dynamic, and an organization, a CSO, a new CSO cannot say that we cannot afford to do marketing, and that helps for the mind. Because I think the conversation, maybe the last class was the issue of the budget, and sometimes we start with a limited mindset and saying is only how much we have to spend. Whereas we find what we need to do and work from there, go back. So that helps put it in some good dynamics. And the personal sharing is really beneficial, at least to me, than just reading those things in a book that is written by a middle-aged white person. Thanks very much.
Most welcome. I'm glad it was useful. And yeah, don't think about not doing marketing. There is an author called Stephen Covey who says, he's written a book called The 7 Habits of Effective People. And one of them, in one of his chapters, he talks about beginning with the end in mind. So you need to think about where you want to go and then build a plan around that. Like I said, it still has to be smart. So realistic has to come in there, right? What can actually be done? You may well find you need to peel back a little bit, or you may find that in fact you need to stagger it. So you figure out what it is you can do now for what you want to achieve in a year, but what can you do in the next 3 months that's going to take you one step closer to that goal? And then but if you know where you want to go, like I said, if you know your why, right, why are you doing what you're doing, and you have a plan in place for that why, because that's what's driving you, you can make some absolutely awesome things happen.
One more thing, really. I've been sharing with the group this whole concept of resources and the access to resources that one may have. I've spent time with them telling them about doing an audit, just recognizing within the group, what resources they have within the group. And the fact that in budgeting, we must always be able to put value to the effort that people put into any activity, right? So that we never start off thinking that we have no resources. Because once we have members, we have resources, right? How those resources are going to be monetized or transformed into whatever we want will be dependent on our own creativity, right? I've shared with them the fact that an asset listing includes, if the CSO was to do its asset listing today as opposed to yesterday, what they'd have to include in that is Waves, a connection with Waves. Because we have not yet monetized that. Monetize it in the sense that, we just got an hour out of you. You know what I mean? If I happen to share with them what the hourly rate is, they'd understand what they just got,
Yeah.
Right? So that here you have a CSO that isn't even registered yet, isn't fully registered yet, and already has that going for it. In that when it puts down its asset listing,
Yes.
a number of assets that it has, access to, that is something that I want to keep, reinforcing to them, and let them know that we do not limit ourselves when we're doing the budget, right?
Yes.
The resources are going to come, because we expect people to invest. We're not looking for donations. We're looking for people to invest in the core mission that we have, and and we're going to get there. I mean, I'm not worried at all. I really think that despite the place and everything else, that's not going to be an issue.
And I think it doesn't hurt as well to, again, as Steve is saying, the whole asset listing, it builds that credibility. It paints a picture. Remember that narrative that I said to you, you need to tell about who you are and why it is that people should, buy into what it is you're doing. That asset listing that Steve is mentioning will help to build that, to paint that picture of you. So, absolutely.
Any other questions, comments? Sorry,
Well,
go ahead.
It's a comment, sir, and it's about you. So I like to bring it across as if, he's just winging it as he goes along. But I must say from this discussion here this evening, I can see everything what you would have said, Miss, and what Sir would have taught us coming line by line. He taught us about trust. And I remember in the PowerPoint when we had it in capital letters, that trust is the backbone, having the principles, even our logo on our T-shirt and our mission being able to stay on that T-shirt, how it sells big to everything else. The importance of research, and it came across, keeping the data and so forth. Even other various aspects that you had touched on in regards to networking and all of those things that so would have, taught us from when we started to this present day. I must say in our conversation today, I see everything coming to light, and I was just wondering if so taught you or you taught me. So I just want to say, thank you very much. And so you're doing a fantastic job. You're not winging it as you're trying to make us to believe. You know what you're talking about.
I'm not even going to answer that.
Well, I would like to interject if you would respond, Steve, because I think that's what happens when you have the benefit of experience. Experience is an amazing thing. And which is why I keep saying, put yourself out there, keep an open mind, don't think that you shouldn't. Sometimes you need to force yourself to go. I've been in that position too. And sometimes it's the ones that, I've had to drag myself to, that I end up coming home thinking, wow, I'm so glad that I attended this. This person was so interesting. This was for, if nothing else, than to just clear the cobwebs in your head and change your scenery, because that kind of thing generates creativity and, you know, momentum, and, you know, it just gives you a fresh perspective. So take it. But then I'm saying what you have from Steve, seriously, is amazing experience. This is someone who is living this, you know, or has lived it on a regular basis. And so now it's like second nature for him to be able to tell it to you. So he can afford to wing it, because by now it's second nature. He doesn't have to think about it too much because he just walks in those shoes all the time. That's great.
Yeah. Nobody's buying that. What I would say though is that this business about going out there and meeting people. I mean, what Ms. Lazarus failed to mention is that that's how we met. She was in totally, you know, in a different sector altogether. I mean, we're talking about agriculture. I mean, that is not an area that, you know, she normally works all the time. And there you go.
Yeah.
And since then,
so this would be a typical example for me to use with, you know, going not because it has anything to do with what you're doing right now, but simply because someone's asked you to turn up. Go ahead and turn up. Why not? What have you got to lose? If you can spare the hour or the half hour, support somebody else. That's the other thing. People need to support each other a bit more. Again, that win-win. Give something because you can. The results aren't always immediate, but they come. They're worthwhile. It's worthwhile doing those things.
Ms. Lazarus, I have one question for you that is pertaining to our CSO, and I have one for you that is personal.
Sure.
So the one for the CSO, in your experience, right? How do you see well-defined or well-expressed skills audit? How do you view it? And would you advise, if we're preparing a skills audit for our membership, that it should be short and brief, or would you say that it should be one that should capture all area and all aspect of the members that are on board and the various areas that they can be used or incorporated in the organization? So I would like your take on that. Thank you.
A skills audit. Wow. I would actually just start with, if you're doing, I mean, you're probably a diverse group, clearly, with a range of backgrounds. It's hard to, I think it might be better just to have people, I would start from a place of, what are we all good at? And then figuring out what is good for the organization. So then you can do a quick match to say, this person can do this person can do that. However, what would then be necessary is what is needed for the organization, and then perhaps see who has an affinity for that, right? And then if people, now the thing is with commitment as well, and this is going to happen as you keep, I think as you grow together as a team, you may well find that somebody would say, yeah, I want to do, I don't know, web development or graphic design or something, because generally they're quite creative and they have great ideas, but it just doesn't transfer itself to the screen. Or they don't have the time. Maybe their job just doesn't allow them to spend as much time as they would like. Whatever it is, you may find that the person you would have matched this skill to somehow can't deliver on it. Not because they don't want to, bear that in mind, but because it just, and there might be someone else showing, be flexible, be prepared to change. In fact, I worked for one organization where, more stories, one organization where I said to my team, everybody's going to learn to do. We were in the business of experiences. And I said, everybody's going to pick an experience. And internally, we're going to become the best resource for our experience. We will all be experts. And when everybody's finished in one area, we swap it around. So by the time we're finished, so people might have their preference, for what they would prefer to engage in. But internally as a team, we must be able to support each other. So we will all learn in some detail the thing that we are responsible for bringing to other people. And so you need to stay open and stay flexible and be willing to learn. And if you really can't do it, you can't do it. But also for the person who may have wanted to do it, but realize they don't have the time to do it, relinquish it. Don't hold the team back because, you know, again, that's just about adapting. There's something else that you'll be really good at and you can do, and it will be more beneficial for the team to spend your time there than to, you know, hold the team back. So I would say start with what everyone's good at, just put it on a paper quickly, and then match, you know, circle what the organization needs. And if anything's missing, then identify what the organization needs and say, okay, so who thinks they can handle this and why? And give it a go. You know, you can probably even do it as a trial period. And if it doesn't work, agree to make a switch after X amount of time if you're not seeing. And this is, again, it goes back to putting timelines to everything and holding people accountable. Yeah, you must say, this is who is going to do X, this is when we're going to get it. And if it doesn't turn up, well then, you know, you have to answer to that.
Thank you very much. Well said. And the other question is, any relation to Pamela?
I think she's a cousin. We haven't, in fact, I can't say I think anymore. I would say I know, because I was doing family search, family tree search. That was last year as well. And the gentleman was fascinated, who was helping me at the registry, was fascinated, and he actually traced my family and he made the link. So I think my grandfather on my dad's side was the brother of, I think it's Pamela's dad. So we're actually cousins, yes. But we only just found that out last year. But all along, for as long as we've known of each other, we assume that because of the name and the size of us, there must be some relation. So we refer to each other as family anyway.
Well, I must say thank you for all your answers here this afternoon and your contribution and for being so honest with us. Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Glad it was helpful.
Any other comments before we close, before we thank Ms. Lazarus officially? Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, then it's up to me to thank you, really, for spending the hour and 15 minutes with us. You know, it was useful for me. I'm going to hear from them after you leave, you know, tomorrow or Tuesday or so, you know.
I expect your ear will be on fire.
What they thought, yeah, you know. But I will convey the sentiments to you.
Okay, thank you, kindly.
As I get them, you know, because you know, apart from the hot, there's also the transparency.
Right, exactly. I was going to say exactly that. Do not hold back, guys. You know.
Now that I know all about H2, now that I know all about H2, you're gonna get it. You know.
There you go. There you go. I can take it.
Whatever. You know, I'm gonna be completely open about it.
Okay, awesome. That's how we do business. So let me just say again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I know we've been very formal here. It's something I should have put a stop to before, but clearly I go by the name of Raylene. For all those of you who have referred to me as Miss Lazarus, I really don't stand on ceremony. So it was lovely meeting all of you, interacting with all of you. Thank you for being such a warm and engaging and interactive bunch. And I really hope that this proves useful. And if I could continue to be useful, it would be my pleasure to do so. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you and all the best. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Right. Okay.
We're gonna close off now, guys. The recording will be up as per usual, and on this occasion, I'm going to share it with Ms. Lazarus as well. So, have a good evening, all. Bye, and thank
Pleasant
you, Karen.
evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everybody.
Good night.